which is the last two verses on Zakat al-Mal, inshallah. So these are the categories to whom Zakat is given.
Okay, so 207.
Yeah, and 208.
It is distributed to the poor and the destitute, the Ghazi warrior, in order to set slaves free, to the Zakat agents, and those in debt. To those whose hearts may be brought closer to Islam, the stranger in need, that is, as long as they are free, Muslim, and there is no doubt as to their state.
Okay. Now, these are the 8 categories that Zakat is given to. And these are from the Quran. It's from ayah 60 of Surah Tawbah. إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها ومعلفة قلوبهم وفي رقاب والغامرين وفي سبيل الله وابن السبيل. That sadaqat, here you know the word sadaqat is used, but it means zakat. It's given to the fuqara, the poor, the miskeen, the workers, the one whose hearts are going to be brought near, to the slave, and the one who's fighting in the way of God, and you know the one who's lost in his way. I think you'll find a better translation than mine, but it's ayat 60 of Surah Tawbah. Ayat 60 of Surah Tawbah. These are the categories that we can't add another category to. Yeah?
What we can take out of them?
Huh?
What we can remove from them?
We cannot remove any of them. We cannot add another category to. We can stretch them. Yeah? We can stretch them. And inshallah, what Sidi Mayara has done is he's taken each one and explained it, inshallah. So the first one that we need to understand is that, you know, of these is, you know, the faqir and miskeen. The faqir is someone who has, you know, something, but it's not enough. Yeah, the faqir is someone who has, but it's not enough. By this we don't mean for a day or a month. We mean for the whole year. So you know when you're giving zakat, and this is, you know, the state when it's distributing, it's not looking at, you know, oh, I'm going to give him for a month, or I'm going to give him for a day. It's going to provide for the whole year.
So it might be eligible, but it won't last him for the whole year.
Yeah,
anyway.
so he's got enough. Yeah, the faqir is someone who's got enough, but it's not going to last him. Yeah. The miskeen is someone who's he's abject. And that's, you know, the mashhur understanding of these two categories. Now, Imam Lakhmi, some of these names might be new to you. Imam Lakhmi is a very famous mujtahid within the school. He's from Kairouan in what's it called? Tunis. Yeah, from Kairouan in Tunis. He's the teacher of Imam Mazari. Imam Mazari is, you know, again one of the mujtahids within the madhab. He actually reached the level of ijtihad, and he only gave fatwa according to the school. He says someone who calls himself to be a faqir, but it's not true. Yeah. Now, nowadays, how the state works is that everything is known in this country. We know people's accounts and everything. People still fidget, but in my teens, I used to work in this restaurant. The owner used to have, for the VAT man, he used to have 2 receipt books, one before midnight and one after midnight. Yeah. And the one that was shown to the VAT man was always the one before midnight.
Siddiq, one question just regarding the 2 Imams.
What, Lakhmi and Mazari?
This is 2 general questions. One, how long after Imam Malik were these?
We're looking at hundreds.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
And what generally speaking, what did these Imams have to do to reach the level of being mujtahid? Anyone generally? Is there like obviously I can't say, do you PhD and you're mujtahid now, but
okay. General rule is there's 500 ayat, there's 500 hadith, of ahkam. Do you understand by ahkam?
Rules.
Yeah, rulings. Within the Quran, the maximum is 550. There's not one ayah before that. There's actually 6,666 ayats. Yeah? Out of them, only 500 are the ones that are for ahkam. So a mujtahid is the one who knows the ramifications of every ayat. I'm talking about mutlaq, an absolute. Yeah? And he doesn't have to be a hafiz of Quran, by the way. But he must know. You won't find one without one, but those 500 ayats they'll know. There's hadith is mirrored. Again, the corpus of hadith goes into hundreds of thousands. The ayats of ahkam are just like that. The hadith of ahkam are like that as well. So they must know the hadith of ahkam, and they must be experts on Arabic grammar, the language. So those are the 3 requirements which a mujtahid must know. Go on.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because I was talking to a couple of people and I was like, also what madhab do you follow? And you'll hear some say, some people obviously just don't know what madhab is, but there's some people who are, I guess, not knowledgeable, but they're like, I don't like someone else deciding my faith for me.
Okay.
I've done extensive research and I don't follow madhab. And in my head I'm like, oh, this is so wrong. But then I'm like, I don't really know what to say. I'm just like, good for you. You're happy. But then I'm just like, because it just seems so arrogant to say that you somehow are more knowledgeable than these 40 imams. It's just an arrogant thing to be like, I've researched myself. And it's like, dude, you're like, what, 20 years old, like 25? I don't know. Like, it's just so weird. I don't know.
I'll tell you the best answer is he or she at university?
Yeah, most of these people that I meet are
okay. So if they're at university, ask them what degree they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah? Then ask them what university they're studying at.
Okay.
Yeah? And then ask them, could they have done it without coming to university? And that's just the degree.
Yeah.
Not the deen, just the degree.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And if they're, if they've got any intelligence, they'll shut up.
Oh, yeah, I get it.
I'm just not good at explaining things, but I'm just like,
It's Ibn Rajab's book, because somebody gave it, I bought his book, A Refutation of the... He just calls everybody an imbecile in it, but he's a bit strict on it. But he wrote a book, Ibn Rajab's, Those Who Reject the Four Schools.
Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, alhamdulillah, he was a mountain of a scholar. He was Hanbali.
He's got a very... in his book, he's like, you innocent imbecile. So now we've got a joke. He's like, if you want to refute someone, refute Ibn Rajab's style. He's so strict.
What's it called? Those Who Refuse the Four Madhabs?
It's a small book. It's not
very small. A Refutation of Those Who Reject the Four Madhabs.
Yeah.
It's really cheap. It's like £4 book.
But the thing is that you shouldn't get into if someone doesn't want to, then that's their journey at that time.
That's how I I feel. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
going to have a debate.
Yeah,
I'm not-
don't.
like-
You know, the Quranic understanding is when you come across ignorant people, just say salam.
Yeah, but you just wish they
Waqalu
kind
salam.
of knew. Like, not knew.
And the thing is that, you know, everyone's on a journey.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And this is the thing that, you know, even people who reach the pinnacles of the deen, even they are on a journey.
Yeah.
There's, you know, which is, I don't know if any of you have heard of Bayezid Bistami. Bayezid Bistami, yeah, he was, you know, one of the great Sufi masters, and he has this poem in which he experiences, you know, the ascension, and he wrote it down, and it's some Orientalists translated it ages ago. It's in Persian, and it's the final line that's interesting. It says, "Did my ego trick me again?"
Oh, I love that line.
It says, "Did my ego trick me?"
What is it? Is it in Persian?
Who? Bayezid
No,
Bistami?
that last line. What was it? What was it?
I can't remember, but it's in English.
Because I was taught Urdu, and if you get Urdu, you can.
No.
You can sometimes.
No, not that one. He's but the thing is, you'll be able to get most of his works are online, Bayezid Bistami's. But to get to that's the minimum. I jotted down some time ago. Imam Ghazali's he wrote down, you know, the requirements of a mujtahid. I've got them somewhere.
Really?
Yeah. If I find them, I'll put them up. But those are the three. These three requirements are the bedrock. The rest are extra. Yeah. Language, Quran, Hadith.
And if you're a mujtahid, that means you're no longer following a school, or you're only mujtahid within a school?
No, you can. I'm not someone that'll sit here and say that you can't get mutlaq, absolute. Of course you can. We're not people who say that the door of ijtihad closed. It never closed. Yeah? But you'll find, if you go on my Facebook notes, you'll actually find, you know, a list of last 100 years of mujtahids that are scholars from Fez numbered, named. And there's actually Imam Tayyib Kiran, they all accepted, reached mutlaq.
What's mutlaq again?
Absolute. They don't have to follow anyone. They reach that level.
What's his name?
Tayyib Kiran. Yeah, Imam Tayyib Kiran.
Wow.
I've even heard that they may not follow anyone. Is that right?
Pardon?
That they may not follow anyone.
No. They can't follow anyone. If they follow someone, they're not absolute. Once they reach absolute, they can't, because I'll give you an example. You know, in the chapter of prayer for Qibla, you have 4 people. They can't agree which way the Qibla is. One believes it's the east, the other the west, the other the south, the other the north. Yeah? Now, the fiqh understanding is that each one of them has to pray towards the 4 directions, because they're not convinced. Yeah. Now, if one of them follows, he's doing wrong because he's not convinced, and that's just in Qibla. So once in scholarship you reach that level where you don't have to, you go direct and come up with, you know, literally you dive into the sea and come up with the answers. You have to follow your answers.
Is Bin Bayer one of them, I think?
No.
He's not.
At this time we don't have anyone, because Dr. Bin Bayer, Hafidullah, every opinion he gives, so far to date he has not given any that is outside of known scholarship.
Even
Yeah,
like
none.
the hijab one that
Yeah, it's not outside. The hijab one, that, you know, just look at the hijab of a slave girl. And that's across the 4 schools.
So the fact that he was applying it anew, because he was saying that anyone, so I don't need to, he would say I don't need to wear a headscarf because I'm in the West and this is my modesty. That one. Is that not a new thing?
The thing is that, the issue of hijab is a can of worms that I don't want to open.
So you wrote an article about it, is that what happened?
Yeah. What you've got to understand is that, we've always had this dichotomy, I call it dichotomy, where we've got 2 women, Muslim, one, the Sharia says she has to cover from head to toe, apart from hands and feet. The other, she only has to cover from where her ribs finish to above her knees.
Oh, okay.
Do you understand?
Yeah, I got it.
This is the Sharia. So I would like, the hijab police to sort that one out for me.
I thought that was quite a novel position that he took there, but it wasn't.
No, because the thing is that, if you pray, if a slave girl, forget about the girl, woman, prays head uncovered, and chest uncovered, she does not have to repeat her prayer wajiban as an obligation. Does that make sense?
It does,
Yeah? Now, and if a woman, a free woman, prays head uncovered, she does not have to repeat her prayer wajiban, but it's within the time recommended. And then, within the madhabs, there's a difference of opinion. Is covering the head a shart of prayer or outside of prayer? This last one is pointless, but the one of one having to cover head to toe and the other having to cover from the end of the ribs to the knee, and both of them are modest. That scholarship needs to answer.
So that would then, if he answered that, then he'd be mujtahid.
No, he would not. It's not so easy as that. It's not so easy as that.
But then,
He has to come up. A mujtahid mutlaq has to write a work of fiqh covering every aspect of fiqh.
Okay.
From his angle.
So examples would be Imam Ghazali, Imam
No.
Al-Haddad, no?
No,
Imam Ghazali was Shafi'i.
Imam Ghazali is not a mujtahid mutlaq.
Ibn al-Arabi, he was Shafi'i.
Ibn al-Arabi, he is mujtahid mutlaq. Yeah. No, the Sufi, not the Maliki.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, he's mutlaq. He and if you read him, he actually gives you solutions to a lot of problems that we have.
Dr. Umar told us we're not ready to read him.
Yes. There are certain of his works that
They can read about him.
You need a lot of representation.
you can read. I would recommend that people read his Aqidah.
Okay.
If you can get that in English, read that. It will give you the soundest Aqidah that you'll find.
Okay.
Yeah, you won't find, and there's no confusion there, and there isn't any ambiguity there neither.
Okay.
What's it called in Arabic?
It's the his Futuhat al-Makkiyah. It's the first section.
Go on.
There you go. Read that. Okay. So With Imam Lakhmi, that's where we were. Yeah, with Imam Lakhmi, you know, someone who claims to be poor. Yeah, him claiming to be poor is not enough. People need to prove that they are poor. Yeah, so nowadays we could actually do checks to see if they're poor. Before it was people had to witness. You know, his neighbours or would witness that, you know, so and so is poor.
So, Sheikh, you said about faqir is someone who has enough, but not for the whole year.
Yes.
How about the miskin?
The miskin, he does not have anything. La shay.
At all.
He's abject poor. Miskin is someone who's abject poor. Yeah.
The way they say that faqir lillah, they don't say miskin lillah.
Pardon?
Is that the way they say, that the Sufi would say faqir lillah, not miskin lillah?
What the Sufi, leave the Sufis from when the Sufis say that, you know, they actually mean that, you know, you're in need of God. Yeah, you know, they say that so and so is a faqir, and they say fuqara, that, you know, that they are in need of God. Yeah? Not that they are poor. Yeah, that they need in God. The other thing is that, you know, it has to be someone who's free. We're talking about the miskin and the.
So this is miskin.
We're talking about, you know, the miskin and the faqir.
Both
of them. You know, if you're going to give, because both of them will be given. Yeah, they have to be free. You can't give zakat to a slave. Question: why can't you give to a slave? Yeah, his master's, his welfare is someone else's responsibility. You can only give to a Muslim. You can't give to, you know, a non-Muslim. Yes.
What about those whose hearts may be broken?
Well, we're going to cover that. We're going to cover that.
So you can't give zakat to non-Muslim.
Yeah. We're talking about, you know, the category of miskin or faqir. Yeah. As to, you know, people of bid'ah, there's difference of opinion. Yeah. Where there's khilaf, means that yes and no. Third category, third condition is that, you know, the faqir and miskin, someone else should not be responsible for their welfare. For instance, you know, if the son is responsible for the parents, or the parents are responsible for the son, the wife is responsible for her husband if she's rich, well, if she can afford it, or the other way around.
So she is responsible for him if he's poor.
Huh?
Stop talking.
No, if she can provide, if she gives, it's nothing wrong.
No, there's nothing wrong. But I mean, has he got a claim on her? If he's
No, he has no claim on her.
Right.
She has a claim on him.
Yeah.
It's always the other way around.
So I thought what I'd
No,
understood.
it's always the other way around.
Nice try.
He never has a claim on her. He never has a claim on her wealth.
Right. So I thought, because I'm sorry, I thought what I heard was that if she was rich and he was poor, you couldn't give zakat to him.
If she provides, then no. We're talking about, you know.
So she, as a matter of fact, she provides for him.
Yeah. Then no.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Sorry.
Or, you know, foster children. The foster parents are responsible. Foster parents are responsible for them. So we're looking at someone who, you know, is Muslim, yeah, poor. No one is responsible for their upkeep. Yeah, zakat will be given to that person. Yeah, and we will give zakat enough so he can, or he or she can look after themselves for the whole year. The final condition.
Is on that last point. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So within the new Muslim circle,
Yeah.
when zakat time comes around, which most people are giving in about Ramadan time, we quite often have people who are like in that category of fiqh. We've got one or two sisters who are regularly in that category.
Yeah.
So we just take what we can from the people around. So we do like a.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily take. They commit it as zakat if they like. But we'll say like this person hasn't got money at the moment. They need money.
Yeah.
And then people tend to give their zakat. The zakat's never enough for a year. It's usually enough for a few months.
Yeah.
So is that still?
No, it's still as long as they're given.
Yeah.
The ideal being that, you know, when we give, we don't give by we give full quota. We give fully. Because the whole thing is that you're bringing the whole idea of the nisab is that, you know, society comes up, brings, you know, the poor to that level.
Yeah.
You know, the 20 dinar level is the level that society should make sure that everyone's on that level.
Yeah.
So people that fall under that, that's what the zakat money does. It brings them up to that level.
Yeah.
So they have that enough, which means that 20 dinars is enough for someone for an individual to, for the whole year.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fourth condition, that miskeen or faqir can't be from the descendants of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The al of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam cannot be given zakat. This is a slap for people who say that, you know, the descendants don't have any, in the Sharia there's no.
I was going to ask the khums thing.
That's what the government should give.
What's the nowadays?
We can give them sadaqah. We cannot give them zakat. Keep in mind what zakat is. Zakat is you're taking something out of your money, which is, you know, to purify it, to make it grow. Yeah. So people who are pure can't be given something that is impure. Yeah. So you can give them sadaqah. You can give them charity. Ideally, the state should provide for them. Yeah.
And is that still in our time? So you have, I guess you'd really need to be very confident that you're a descendant of Prophet, not just, you know, the Pakistani community. You have the, what are those?
Sayyids.
The Sayyids.
To me, I'm a person, anybody that claims, I will get up and kiss their hand. To me, it doesn't matter if they are or not. That's between them and their God.
Yeah.
We will give them their due and their respect, because they're claiming connection with Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
So even by surname, because the claim.
No, not by surname. They
know their ancestry. Because there's a difference, isn't there? There are people who know their ancestry and they can trace it back to Prophet.
It's the thing is that, you know, in all communities, people are known, families are known.
Sheikh, this might sound a bit weird, but shouldn't someone be known for?
Pardon?
Shouldn't someone be known for who they are rather than?
No, the thing is that, you know, certain families are known.
Yes.
It's like, you know, in Morocco, they have a separate card, ID card.
Wow. Sure of that,
Yeah, they have their genealogy is government property. They know who they are.
Because that used to be traditionally the norm in the science, lineage science, to trace back your ancestry.
Your ancestry.
By heart, you know, your tree.
I would love to know.
It's like, you know, even the Iranians come to Fez to check because that's how preserved their records are. Because they can trace each lineage.
We don't have that in the subcontinent, do we?
They actually do.
We have
They actually do. They do.
In Delhi as well. So
Yeah.
my family, every generation of men will go and sign a book. So my
Yeah.
brothers have just gone to do it. Our
Yeah.
generation.
Yeah.
So we have it so we can trace our family
Yeah.
from that side.
Egypt, they have a book,
That's
a
it.
tree thing.
Yeah, the Shajara, yeah. It's known.
That's nice.
Yeah. Okay. So those are, from the Masakin, they've got to be free Muslim. No one else should be responsible for their welfare, and they shouldn't be descendants of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah. Okay. So we've covered, the first two categories. The third category of whom zakat can be given to is someone fighting in the way of God. The ghazi. Now, what's meant by,
Someone fighting.
fighting in the ayat of the Quran is fi sabilillah, in the way of God. Yeah? Now, in the way of God means literally a mujahid fighting for God, not for country. Yeah? If they are on the borders of, the Muslim and non-Muslim, literally, what used to be the borders, or certain borders are still there, then fine. If they're defending that, they would. But they would be given when they are fighting. Only when they are fighting. They would be given alatul harb, weaponry. Even if they are rich. And the warrior would only be given when he is fighting. If they're not fighting, they're not given. Yeah? Only when they're only at the state of fighting is zakat money used to give them weaponry or whatever to fight.
So in nowadays we don't have this type of restrictions.
No, we don't, because now we have standing armies. Because you see, at that time there was no such thing as standing armies. Yeah, this was when people needed to be given swords, horses, whatever, armor to go and fight to defend the Muslims. Now, states do that. Some people might, stretch it that they're doing dawah, that they're fighting again. The fourth category of people who would be given zakat is, freeing a slave. So zakat money would be used literally to buy someone's freedom.
Can I?
Yeah.
Not if it's going to take ages. But from the point of view of the transaction, what happens?
Pardon?
From the point of view of the transaction,
Yes.
what happens? Do I buy the slave, and then I say to the slave, "You're free"? So the slave is at some point my property.
What happens is you draw a contract between, the slave owner. You buy the slave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you draw a document declaring the slave free. Yeah. Because what will happen is that you will, if the state does it, if the state still buys it, the state still has to draw out the document declaring the person free. So it could be that, there used to be a category of people where, they would agree that I will work such and such, there's a certain amount of money, I'll work it off for you. Yeah. So because the amount is known, so that amount would be given, and that person would be free. Or that someone had worked off a certain amount, and then there was a certain amount owing, so zakat money would be used to free that person. So every category that you can think of would be used. Yeah. The sixth category is someone in debt. Now, by debt we don't mean paying off the six.
I think we've missed 5.
Oh yeah, let's go back to 5. The fifth one, now this is interesting, is the workers. People who work to collect and distribute to the zakat. So they can be given for the amount of work that they do, even if they are rich.
Repeat that, please.
Even if they are rich. Yeah. So they're not eligible for zakat because their personal wealth is above the nisab, but because they are working, they would be given. If they are poor, if they are faqir, yeah, then they would be given to take them out of that category. Now, this is conditional. The condition is that the worker has to be Muslim, has to be free. Here comes the one. Has to be male. Has to be mature. Can't be a descendant of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The last one, you can understand why. Yeah?
I can't understand my own. Yeah, we never understand it. Is there an explanation? It's like with the prayer thing, wasn't it? As well?
No, the prayer thing is understandable. You've got to understand the context that they're out collecting and distributing. Yeah.
Because they're out and about.
Yeah.
But you told us how women were in balance.
No.
What about Shifa? She managed the whole finance for the whole of the Islamic state.
Yeah, she didn't. She wasn't going out collecting it and distributing it. She managed it.
So you've got to go to the dodgiest bits of town.
Yeah, not just dodgy bits of town. You've got to go into the sticks, collect it, and take it to God knows where. Give it to so and so because.
Why couldn't women do that?
We could do
I wouldn't have a problem.
So is it? But where does this come from? Or was this something that came later? Is this a commentary on, or is it actually this out of Prophet's?
No, this is commentary on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that,
No, this we could. This we could. This is not this is not problematic.
Okay.
This is not problematic. Yeah.
So it actually mentions here, if I can read. Sheikh Mayaro includes being adult and male in his commentary, but those conditions are not mentioned in other reliable books of fiqh like the Mukhtasar, Akrab al-Masalik.
Akrab al-Masalik, yeah. But the thing is that you see the Mayara is one of the muftis of Fez, and his books on ahkam are standard. Again, as I said, that you need to contextualize them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was standard for but we can say now that
no, but the thing is the thing of the descendants is categorical.
Yeah.
That there's no way that they would be permitted.
So it's those two, male and mature, that can be debated.
The mature can't be debated.
Mature can't be.
The mature can't be debated. The male can be debated.
Okay.
No, is that because you're making a legal judgment?
It's a legal judgment.
Yeah.
You got to be mature. And the other thing is that which isn't here, which they must be knowledgeable about the rulings of zakat. They must know the ins and outs of zakat. Because the thing is, they must know that who it can be taken from and who it can be given to. Okay. The sixth category is the one in debt. Now, these are people who, because of their debt, they're in poverty. So their poverty could be, we could remove their poverty through zakat.
They made themselves poor
No, they've ended up poor.
because they're
Mortgage.
No.
I was like, can I just pay my husband? Pay off my mortgage.
That's a practical example, I think, right?
No, not
Would you
really.
be poor?
It's like, look,
That would be unethical.
in our example, in our context, in this country, would be these shark loans,
loan shark and
lo-
like
payday loans that people end up, for the right reasons, end up in the wrong place. Yeah. So and the interest on those loans are just crippling.
Yeah.
So what zakat money could be used is to get them out of that trap. Yeah, but we won't use that if they've ended up in that debt because of committing sin. Yeah, if they've gambled or drug, alcohol. If they end up doing into debt because of the wrong reasons, we won't take them out of that debt.
If we did, would it be sadaqah?
With sadaqah you could use it, but zakat money you couldn't.
You could. Because that isn't their right then.
Huh?
That wouldn't be their right.
No, that's not their right. That's not their right. It could also, someone dies leaving a debt. Yeah, there's no one to pay the debt off. Zakat money could be used to pay the debt of the deceased. The mashhur position is that we can't pay the debt off if they've committed a sin. Just a side note. When they put that is the mashhur, what are they saying?
Majority.
There's other opinions.
There you go.
if they committed a sin like in their life.
Pardon?
If they committed a sin.
The thing is that that's a mashhur position, but when you look at the person.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, we could stretch it. We could stretch it. Yeah, we could stretch it. Okay. The seventh category is mu'allafat al-qulub. People to strengthen their heart. Now, Sidi Mayara says that the well-known position is non-Muslims who would ease their entry into Islam. That's the mashhur position. The other position is people new to Islam.
So this is someone who wants to convert. But doesn't have the means to convert.
No, it's like, look what happens. If someone comes to the deen, they're going to lose everything. Yeah. So zakat money should be used to make sure that they have everything.
Money is not holding them back.
Yeah.
And it's real enough. Women do. Shut up, and their marriage ends as soon as they convert.
Really?
And then that's aside from the Sikh parents who are going to kick you out and never speak to you again.
Yeah.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah, it's quite a lot.
A lot of people don't end up doing it because of the parents. They find it too much for them.
You're allowed to be Muslim in secret, aren't you? Like Islam or somewhere like that.
I've been told that a few times.
And obviously it's not
How
ideal,
long
but
are
you
you
have
gonna
to
do?
Sorry again?
If you're like quite a young convert, and you're still living with your parents, just to not tell them you're Muslim for a while, just because it's not practical to deal with the consequences if you do tell them.
There was a young Sikh man who came to see me, and he said it's difficult. I just said, just don't say.
He's Muslim though.
I haven't seen him since, but I hope he is.
He's got the turban on and he's in a mosque,
No. The thing is that what you find is that he can keep his hair, he can keep his turban. There's nothing wrong.
You can keep going to the good one.
Yeah.
My aunt became Muslim, and it wasn't acceptable in her generation. She was in the 60s, 70s. She always carried on. She followed a Muslim peer.
Yeah.
But she always went to Gurdwara. She still to this day goes to Gurdwara because it was socially unacceptable to do anything else. The whole family, her parents.
Yeah.
But she didn't tell anyone she was Muslim.
They followed a peer. Everyone was like, okay, they're weird. But they carried on doing all the secret things, so they weren't marginalised, basically.
I see.
Yeah.
I've heard of this story that I think it was a French guy or an American guy. He went and did bay'ah to a sheikh, and was doing everything, praying, fasting. This went on for years, and then someone was talking and. I didn't realise I'd become a Muslim.
Oh my god. That's so funny.
Oh my goodness.
I can believe it.
That would be a great book though. Secret Muslims.
He's still alive.
It would be a
He
great
lives
book.
in the States.
Accidentally Muslim.
It's not a million miles from Christianity or Sikhism actually. I mean, Guru Nanak would have said that that's a legitimate path to take. You can follow a Muslim because he'd be like, that's where you found God.
Yeah.
That was his thing. It was like, you just find God wherever you find God.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of Sikhs actually talk about they're not about converting people, it's about just finding what you find and how it gives you peace and all of that. Which I find that interesting.
Yeah. So that is quite
Okay.
sorry.
The 8th category is a stranded traveller. Someone who's stranded. For instance, someone from Singapore's here, lost his ticket and passport and can't get his way. Can't get back.
As hard as he tries.
Yeah, as hard as he tries. Yeah. So zakat money would be used for them to get back to wherever they've come from. Yeah. Now, the condition is that the journey that they'd made was not to commit a sin.
And could it be any traveller? Do they need to be Muslim?
The whole thing of zakat, apart from mu'allafat al-qulub, even mu'allafat al-qulub is that they're Muslim anyway. It's only for Muslims.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would we call fall in the category of someone who's convinced of Islam but hasn't converted yet? Is there a category for that? That's a weird question, but there are some people that unfortunately they're convinced that there's something holding them back.
Aren't you Muslim in your heart first anyway? Like you become Muslim in your heart first.
The thing is, you declare it, so we're witnesses.
Do you have to declare it?
Yeah.
Like, is it just part of being a Muslim? Like I have to say La ilaha illallah.
Yeah, you have to say it.
I just didn't know. I mean, what I mean is, I just thought, if you believed in the conditions in your heart, then you were.
And you did something about it.
Yeah, like you pray and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so if you did something about it, you made that thing inside manifest.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But then, if you remember when we covered you weren't here when we did the Aqidah.
No, I missed
right?
it.
It's an obligation once in your lifetime to say it. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. As an obligation.
But so legally you wouldn't consider someone Muslim unless they said it publicly.
They would have to manifest their faith.
But is somebody considered a Muslim if they're praying in secret and fasting in secret? And
if we don't know he or she is a Muslim, the only way that he or she faith gets to known is that they declare it. How they declare it?
There's various ways.
It's various ways.
It's between them and God, so it's like
faith at the end of the day is between them and God, but the community has to witness someone. It's like, when you go to the mosque for 40 days, we will call you a believer. Otherwise, we'll call you a Muslim.
It depends. I guess it depends how concerned they are with the community as well.
But the whole thing is that, faith is witnessed. Because you see, look, it's called shahada, witnessing. It's witnessed.
But it just makes me it makes me uncomfortable the idea that other people have to witness your faith.
No, but if you start praying, if you start manifesting your faith, then that's manifest. It's witnessed.
But it's not. You don't do things with the intention of being witnessed.
You do.
Islam was
you do. They call you to the front of the mosque and they say, "You sure you want to go through this?"
Yeah.
You say, "Yeah." And you're very much intending that everybody behind you should see it.
Yeah.
And if you're not speaking loud enough, you get told to speak up.
You have that.
No, there's a thing called a mic. You don't have to speak.
I didn't do that, by the way. I think if Islam was a reclusive religion,
again?
monk-like. If Islam was monk-like and reclusive, then you could keep it private. But in a religion,
no, you can't. No, the thing is, you can't keep it. You can't keep it private if you're a private person.
Yeah.
But the thing is that the religion requires you to come out of your privateness.
Because that would be relevant in terms of the Muslim community, muamalat. The transactions with Muslims, so they can categorize you
as a Muslim.
That's in terms of you and God, it's between
you and God.
That's what I'm trying to work out. Is there actually two provinces? There's the inward between me and God, and there's the outward between me and the other Muslims, or are they actually together? And that if I'm convinced of the religion, I have an obligation to go and declare myself.
Both.
Right.
Because your inward relationship will manifest you to be with others like you.
Eventually.
But it's that conviction that you arrive at, that I do want others to know.
Can I ask a few questions about the seventh category?
Can I finish the... Oh yeah, go on.
Oh, I can do it when you finish.
No, go on.
I have quite a few, so...
Go on.
So just in terms of... so zakat sometimes is given, for example, for people who are working with new Muslims that allow them to do that. So people coming into the faith, those of us who support them, I'm not sure whether we're eligible for zakat or not, but certainly the Zakat Foundation will certainly give us zakat if we ask for it for the purposes of looking after new Muslims to do things like education, usually educate for educational needs, things like that. Is that permissible within the school or not?
No. Because the Muslim community should be providing teachers to teach Muslims.
But given that they aren't,
then Muslims should organize themselves that we get to a situation that they do.
So it's basically, because that's what we do, right? So as a new Muslim circle, you fill in the gaps and you try and make sure that you have, like, so we have all different madahib represented, we're all different people, so that we can, you know, if someone like us comes in, we can help them basically.
Yes.
The mosques can't do that because they're so tribalised. So, but we need funding for that.
Yeah.
So we should take sadaqah, not zakat.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Because if you take sadaqah, it's straightforward.
Yeah.
It's straightforward. We know, because what you've got to understand is that, you know, the 8 categories are individuals of Muslims who are in need.
Okay. That's useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are categories of Muslims who are in need that, you know, Muslim wealth is supporting them. Yeah. Now, the Muslim community should organize themselves that, you know, that they provide venues and teachers where people can come and learn the daruri fi din.
Yeah.
And that zakat is not. That's an obligation that the community has to carry. Not that zakat is taken, because zakat is for individuals, not for institutions.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
For example, a student of knowledge, seeking knowledge, would it be included in the 7th category?
No. I know people do. I know people do, but the thing is that, you know, traditionally Muslims had awqaf, and the awqaf, religious endowments, looked after the students and the teachers. It was not zakat money. The awqaf looked after the building, the welfare of the teacher and the student. It was not, you know, zakat money. It's just that, you know, in Egypt it happened when did Nasr come to power? 52. In 1952, in Egypt, the biggest employer, the biggest landowner, were the awqafs. And the income from that supported madaris, supported masajid, supported students. Yeah? And where did all that money and wealth go now?
I think it was Henry VIII.
Yeah, it was. And exactly the same thing as happened, you know, in India, it happened in 1852.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? No, 1857.
War of Independence.
Yeah, in 1857, when there was direct rule from Westminster, all the awqaf, religious endowments, were taken by the government. And we ended up with what we've ended up. Because before scholarship was independent, they did not have to rely on, you know, government or individuals. And the royalty and all the princes, they all supported, and the big gentry, landowners, they all gave that. And that's where, you know, the endowments, projects like yours, you know, big, you know, companies or individuals, they should be approached to give money, rather than, you know, sending money abroad to build orphanages and God knows what, when the need is here.
When Charles becomes Grand Vizier of the UK, then we'll have Duchy Al-Qaf.
There you go. Is there any other from this?
No, that was actually that because you gave me the principle behind it. That's answer.
Yeah, no, because if you look at all the 8 categories, they're individuals. Yeah, we're stretching it. We'll stretch it, but we can't stretch it to outside of the category, and it's the individual that needs to be looked after. Yeah. So the 8th one, the stranded traveller. He must have come on a halal journey, not a journey that he's come to commit a sin. Yeah, if he's come to rob or God knows do, no. He could lie through his teeth, but how are we supposed to know? But it's someone who's genuinely stranded, needs to get back home. There is a condition to that he returns the money. Because this category is not dealing with a poor individual, it's dealing with a category. He's been robbed or whatever. He hasn't got the means to get back home, but he can repay, so he should repay. Yeah. Now, how does he repay? Traditionally, they say that he repays to zakat, to what he's taken to the land or country where he's come from. Yeah.
Wait, as in where he was stranded or where he's actually from?
Where he's actually from. Because in those days there wasn't any way the money could get back. I just say transfer the money back.
Sheikh, a question.
Yes.
The example of the National Zakat Foundation,
yes,
which operates on a model which screens people in need here in the UK, in communities, Muslim communities. Would it be acceptable to give them the zakat money and then they would distribute it to those cases?
Okay, I'm done with this, so I'll take any questions you've got on zakat before I move on to zakat al-fitr. Yeah, I would prefer that you get to know your community, know individuals who are in need, and go and give them and help them yourself directly. That way, it's you first are in contact with your people, you are active, and you know the obligation has been fulfilled. Yeah.
So I was just thinking to myself, because I was thinking how to calculate my zakat, and generally speaking, it's like I get my student finance and my own money and everything together, all my grants. So I get given a grant and then I get given a loan. So the loan money, that wouldn't be under zakat at all, because I have to pay that back. But the grant that I get is mine, and the money that I get from working. So what is zakat? What isn't zakat?
I'll see about student finance as well.
I was just thinking, how do I sort that out?
Look. You're still in the thing of income tax. Yeah? Zakat is not income tax.
Okay.
Zakat is not on your income. Zakat is what you have set aside.
What's left?
What's set aside.
Okay.
And it's there, sitting there for a year. Yeah? So, from your student, whatever your income is, you've got a lump sum sitting there, you've put it there for a year, it's still there at the end of the next full year, 2.5% needs to go to the poor. If you've got, stocks, if you've got bonds, if you've got savings, if whatever means, you're using your money, and there's pensions, no, you can't pay zakat on pension. Yeah, but if you are buying shares, if you are buying bonds, that's ready cash. Zakat. Yeah, on mortgages, you can't make the argument, I'm in debt, I've got a mortgage. No, it's an annual thing. It goes out monthly. You still got savings. It goes from your savings. The student loan, if you've got a student loan and you're working and you've got savings, no, zakat is still due. Yeah.
Why do we not pay it on pensions?
Pension is you actually putting it in.
Yeah.
You actually don't know how much is there, unless you do know.
Well, they give you a notional figure, but by the time you take it out,
So
it'll be different.
yeah, but the thing is, if you know how much you're putting in every year,
Yeah.
because the thing is, because you know you haven't put it in a lump sum at the beginning of the year, and you haven't got the same amount at the end of the year.
Uh-huh.
Do you understand? You're actually paying it in.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good. So if you let's say you've got a savings account and you've got a standing order that goes in there,
Yeah.
£100.
No, what'll happen is, you know, if you've got a standing order going into your savings account,
Yeah.
you know how much goes in at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after argument's sake, you're putting in
1,200 a year.
1,200 a year,
Yeah.
right? So that needs the 1,200, because you're putting in 100 every month. Yeah.
Yeah.
The 1,200 would only be there at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that needs to be there for 12 months before zakat is due on that.
But in the 13th month, do I owe £2.50 for the first 100 that went in?
No,
No. That's from a year from that.
it's a year.
No, because it's the first 100
Yeah.
has now been in there a year. So in the 13th month, I owe £2.50.
You could, yes, you could.
I mean, how you
Yeah.
need to employ an accountant, but I mean,
Yeah, you could. Yeah, £2.50. Fine.
I'm just seeing the spreadsheets that are going to come up in our house now.
Just telling you.
Yeah, £2.50. That's fine.
but then the thing with the pension, like, you've got stuff sitting on the stock market which you're not allowed to touch till you're 65 or whatever, but it is there. It's your money.
No, but the thing is, the money, if you are putting in, for instance, 1,000 every year,
Yeah.
yeah, 1,000 every year, so the zakat would be, 250 the next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think so.
Do you
well,
understand?
I'm trying to get why you wouldn't pay on a pension. Basically.
No, because it's going. It's an increment that you're paying it in every month.
Yeah.
You're not paying it as a lump sum.
Okay.
So if you were calculating it, it would be calculated the year after,
Right.
rather
I
than
see
the
what
year.
you're- I see what you're saying.
Do you understand? You'd
Right.
still pay, but not that year.
Yeah.
The year after, because
Okay.
you know how
That
much
makes-
you.
Okay, now that makes sense. Yeah.
Do you
So
understand?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you still calculate, because what you've got to keep in mind is that whole,
Yeah.
the full year,
Yeah.
the money needs to sit there.
Yeah. And so if you've got money in stocks and shares,
The stocks and shares are easy because you know how much at the end of the year, how much you put in, how much is still
Right.
there.
you-
Because they give.
but they go up and down, don't they?
I know they go up and down, but you know how much you've put in.
So you do it by how much you put in, not by how much it's worth? Because I thought that goes back to the example.
No,
you said.
at the end of the year,
Yeah.
you'll know how much is there.
Because the bank will tend to say you could put in £100 a month,
Yeah,
and let's leave it there for a whole.
whole
Right. So now I've got £1,200.
£1,200 to
Right.
250.
So I put 1,200 quid in, but now the bank writes me, so actually it's only worth 900 because Trump's just invaded China.
It's still, we only need to look at 325, so it's still zakatable.
But how much,
But
are you
how much am I paying on? The 1,200 that I put in, or the 900 it's now worth?
No, 900, because
Right.
the 325, we're looking at the threshold. The threshold
Yeah.
is 200 pieces of silver.
But if the value of your investment goes down,
Doesn't
then
matter.
You pay on the worth that it is at that. So you're not paying 2.5% of the 1,200 you put in.
No.
You're putting 2.5% on the 900.
After the year, yes.
Right.
Okay, fine.
Doesn't matter if it goes up or down. If it's above the 200 pieces of silver,
Yeah.
you'd pay.
Okay.
Yeah. But get away from the income thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get into the thing of saving lump sum set aside year,
Yeah.
poor have a right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's okay.
Is a total. The whole philosophy of it is that money circulates, and the poor have a right, and when you give, it grows.
So I've got another question.
Yes.
Not related to that one.
Okay.
When are you considered? So, I didn't pay zakat for a long time after I converted.
Yeah.
Some of that was because I was still learning, just going through
Yes.
Tabiyya, like learning the steps.
Yeah.
And then some of it was just because I couldn't find anywhere to learn.
Okay.
And I must admit, for a couple of years, I didn't really try.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to work out now. There are lots of years that I haven't paid zakat. So.
Okay.
What's a reasonable time? Do I need to back pay? And what's a reasonable amount of time for me to go back? Like, because I'm just trying to think about when you become mukallaf in zakat, for example. And when I became was probably a bit later than I should have become.
Yeah.
So, how do you work that out?
I'll leave it to you. Because the thing is, no. Because the thing is that you know when you became mukallaf.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, when you became mukallaf, did you have any zakat to give?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I gave it. Yeah.
And if you gave it, then that's fine.
But I could have searched a bit harder to learn about how to pay zakat.
The thing is, Allah does not put a burden upon you that you cannot bear. So the burden that was put upon you was the right burden.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else on zakat al-mal? Okay. Zakat al-fitr. 209 and 210.
What's the difference?
That's what we're going to cover.
209
209 and 210.
The Zakat al-Fitr is paid with sa'a, and it is obligatory on every Muslim and anyone else for whose upkeep he is responsible. If they are Muslim, that is a sa'a of the most widely used foodstuffs of the people, enough to feed a free Muslim for a day.
Okay. Now, we'll do this and then we'll pray Asr.
Asr is still...
No, Asr's kicked in, but
it's kicked in.
if we finish it, then we'll pray and then inshallah. Yeah? Okay. Now, Zakat al-Fitr is an obligation on the same category as Zakat al-Mal. Yeah? Zakat al-Mal is, wealth that's purified. Now, this zakat purifies your fasting. Yeah? Because the point that there is a correlation between the word zakat and tazkiyah. Have you heard of this word tazkiyah?
No. yes.
Self-purification. Yeah? Now, just as you spiritually grow, so what zakat does, it purifies your wealth. So we covered, the wealth. Now, what zakat al-fitr does, it purifies your fasting. Yeah. Now, the amount of zakat al-fitr that we're informed here in this poem is a sa'a. A sa'a is 4 mud of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, mud is a handful, 4 handfuls. It's an obligation. It's not a sunnah. Zakat al-fitr is an obligation. It's not a sunnah.
Zakat the other one.
No, Zakat al-fitr.
It's an obligation.
It's an obligation. It's a fard. It's a wajib. With us.
In the other school it isn't.
Hanafis, no. Their wajib is sunnah.
Our wajib is...
No, our wajib is wajib. Their wajib is sunnah.
Oh,
You know they've got fard and wajib.
yes.
Yeah? So their wajib with us is sunnah. Does that make sense?
We don't have wajib.
We don't have a wajib that's less than a fard, no.
Yeah, we just have fard and then sunnah.
Sunnah, yeah.
So everything
This is a wajib. Yeah?
What matter is before khutbah, after khutbah?
No, we're coming to that. Now, it's a wajib, it's an obligation on every Muslim who has the ability to give it. If he or she does not have the ability to give it, it is dropped from them. Yeah? Now, it's understood that this obligation is specifically on a Muslim, not on a kafir. So there's no difference made here if they are free, slave, male, female, young or old. It's an obligation. So it's an obligation to give from themselves and whosoever they are responsible for. Their wife or husband, parents, children, slave, if they are Muslim.
And if the wife is working, then it's her responsibility to give it, not her husband's.
Is the husband's.
Why?
No, you're right today.
We share all our money.
I'm just curious, so why is it the husband's?
Pardon?
I'm just curious, why is it the husband's?
We're a patriarchal society.
I thought we weren't. I thought that's what.
I said society. I did not say religion.
But it's legal. It's because of the legal responsibility of
the legal responsibility
right,
is
which
that.
is the religion.
Yeah.
Ah.
So if the husband is not there, then the wife would be legally responsible. Yeah. So if the husband, for instance, was a faqir, and the wife was the one that was, her wealth was being used to run the household, then she would be responsible. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, sorry, I just said, if there's a husband and a wife,
Yes.
the zakat, the overall amount, do they individually calculate it? Or can they?
Yeah, they will individually calculate it.
Oh, it's per.
No,
per
because
person.
the wealth is not joint.
Oh.
The wealth is what's the wife's is the wife's, and what the husband is the husband's. The wife can lay claim to the husband, but the husband can't lay claim to the wife's. It's always the other way around. Yeah, doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I mean it's logical when you think about the lifespan. When you start to have children, then you're like, oh yeah, that's why that is.
Yeah.
Because then women are working without earning money.
I always had the problem, like in national statistics, when you do calculate how much someone's earning and stuff like that, you do. There's a lot of things that they don't take out. So when you're doing general statistics, so for example, how much is actually someone spending, and then what you realise is it's really complex.
Okay. Well, the zakat al-mal, if you can concentrate on zakat al-fitr.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Because what you've got to understand is whoever is under the house and the head of the house is responsible for the upkeep, they will give zakat al-fitr on their behalf. Whoever.
And so, say you have 3 children, then you pay zakat al-fitr on behalf of each of those?
Each of them.
And there's no age?
There's no age.
So, baby,
zakat al-fitr. Yeah? If they're foster children, zakat al-fitr.
Okay.
Parents, zakat al-fitr. If you've got visiting guests, if they're not going to pay on their end, you will pay on your end.
Okay.
Yeah?
We haven't gone to the amount yet.
Pardon?
We haven't gone to the amount.
We have gone to the amount.
We didn't
It's
say
one
what
sa',
of what?
So how much is that in?
We're coming to that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
We're
that's
coming to that. We're coming to that.
So, Sheikh, in terms of the parents, so what does that mean? As in, if your parents are no longer earning, or
If you're responsible for your parents, then you will pay on behalf of your parents. If your parents are going to pay, if they've got the means and they will pay themselves, then you won't. But
if they haven't got the means,
if they haven't got the means, you will pay on their behalf. Yeah.
They have to, obviously Muslim.
Yes. Like the Zakat al-Mal, Zakat al-Fitr is only taken from Muslims and only given to Muslims.
taken from and given to us.
Yeah, taken from and given to Muslims. Now, it's usually given, given to people you know in your community who are poor. Yeah? Now, what you give, the text says whatever is the well-known food stuff. So you're not going to give a sack full of potatoes or rice or wheat. If that is what you know will help, then that is what you will give. In Morocco, they give cash. Even in Algeria, they give cash. In this country, we give cash. Yeah. Now,
Who will give it to you?
we're coming. Well, this is what we're coming to. You need to know your community. You need to know the poor families within your community.
So it can't be like the masjid collecting.
It is not given to institutions. It is given to individuals. The reason before, when does it become an obligation? It becomes an obligation when Subh kicks in on the day of Eid. Yeah. It becomes an obligation on the day of Eid. It is recommended that you give it before you pray Salatul Eid. The obligation does not get lifted till you give it. Just because the day has ended does not mean that the obligation has been lifted. Even after a year, the obligation is still on your head.
So that means from the sunset from Maghrib. It starts from Maghrib.
No. It starts at Subh.
Subh.
Of the day of Eid. Of the day of Eid. I'll explain to you the reason why in a minute.
It makes me quite sad because I was thinking we don't really know our communities very well. If I just think about, do I know any poor families near where I live?
No, but that's it shows us how.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, this is the whole reason that why you pray 5 times a day. Why? So you get to know people.
Yeah.
You're out of the house. You're talking to people. You meet people. You get to know families. What's happening? So you know who's needy, who's not needy.
Yeah, because even for example, like Islamic stuff, I don't go to my local.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing there, or some of the things they do that is a bit. It's interesting. So I just don't go, because I don't really get to know my local community, which is sad. And I'm like, I wish I did, but I don't.
No, but this is the thing that the Prophet ﷺ legislated this so that when it comes to the day of Eid, the reason behind it, the whole philosophy of Zakat al-Fitr is that it's Eid, is a celebration that no one has a day in which they do not celebrate. So what happens in all cultures, all communities, all societies, when they celebrate, it's around family and food. Yeah? So that's why the reason the food stuff is included. So you make sure that there isn't a family that goes hungry that day. That every family is celebrating that Eid. That's the thinking, the philosophy behind Zakat al-Fitr. That every family celebrates the end of the month of fasting.
Can I ask a side question? If it's okay.
Go on.
Regarding what you said about prayer, the obligatory prayer being in congregation so that people can know one another. Someone asked me, well, that's great, but why is it that don't the women have to get together as well? It's just she asked that question, but she's like, well, if it's important for the men, isn't it important for the women?
No one's stopping them.
But she was like, why is it fun?
The mosque is stopping them. The deen is not stopping them.
The way I see it, if you make it an obligation, then you've got to move heaven and earth to get there. So if you're a woman and, all patriarchy aside, if you've got a baby in arms and it's your requirement to be at the masjid, who's going to, like the whole community, who's looking after the baby?
No, but the thing is...
That's how I thought about it.
No, was the question, is Jamaat an obligation?
What they were like, if it's an obligation for men so they can...
No, it's not an obligation for men to pray in Jamaat. It's a sunnah. You're talking about Jummah. No, the Jamaat is sunnah across the board. No one holds the position that it's an obligation to pray in Jamaat.
In the mosque?
Yeah.
Friday.
The Jummah prayer is an obligation.
So I think about burning house down, the Prophet saying, I'll burn...
Again, that was to build communities. That was the Jamaat was never an obligation.
In all the schools?
All the schools is a sunnah. But coming back to, the Zakat al-Fitr, is that, you make sure the reason why the obligation begins at Salatul Subh is that you make sure that, the money is given for that day. Because, when someone's poor, if you give it early, they'll spend it on something else. Yeah. So the obligation is to give it that day. So you make sure that they celebrate and they share in the celebration of that day of Eid.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I had another question that's asked. So after Salat at Rizali's, you won't accept your money after Fajr prayer. After Eid prayer. So if you haven't paid it by then too bad, you're not paying it. So I'm wondering whether that's wise, because he can then distribute it.
Yeah, you give it before Eid prayer.
He doesn't. By then, he would have given it out, so he doesn't want it on his ledger.
Yeah. So it's given before, so you give it. Well, you go around and you make sure that those families are there. Then you go and pray Eid, because what happens when you pray Eid? You come home and you eat. Yeah. So you make sure that when everyone returns, there's food in the house. That's the thing, the whole philosophy behind it.
So what if you're struggling to find a poor Muslim family person? Because there's loads in my area that are like non-Muslim, like I'm talking homeless people. But if you don't,
again, if you want to help them, you're more than welcome, but not from this zakat.
I'm talking about this.
No, this needs to go to Muslims.
So what if you can't? Can you say
if you can't, then your family, your extended family. If you can't find anyone here, then wherever you're from.
Yeah.
Because they'll make sure that that 4 families get it.
It's just because the idea of you were saying how it's nice to personally do it.
Yeah, no, that's the whole.
Ideal, right?
No, that's the ideal. I'm talking about the ideal. It should encourage us to go out and network and get to know people as well.
Yeah.
We can send it to family, right?
Of course you can. But what you do is you can't make sure if you are getting an agent to do it on your behalf, that you make sure. This is what I do. On occasions I've had to go outside of Birmingham to give to people, but what you do is you make sure that they will only give it that day, whatever the day of Eid is, that they don't give it before. Because when you give it to charities or you give it to individuals to give it abroad, they'll give it beforehand. I know in Hanafi fiqh they will say 3 days before. You've got to understand the philosophy behind it, the reason for it. Make sure that it's given that day so they celebrate and share in that joy.
That's really Really interesting.
Yeah. Also, the amount is important because we're talking about food.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really think: is £2.50 going to? Yeah.
Yeah.
Really think.
So can you give money instead of? I'm not
No,
saying
no.
Can you give money instead of food?
The scholars permit money being given.
But what's the amount then?
The amount is how much will you spend on a meal.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So there's not as fixed.
It's not fixed.
Oh, because someone said it was like £5 per.
No.
That's a recommendation.
No.
You can calculate, like if you go by the book and it should be 2 litres of barley,
Yeah.
you can go to the cash and carry and find 10 kilos of barley and calculate it. And then
Okay.
you can get an amount, but it's like 50p or something.
So you're like
Which
being
is
generous.
what are you going to do with 50p?
Exactly.
What are you going to do?
No, I'll give an example. You know, I wasn't there last year, but in 2015, I was in Morocco, and they were saying for each individual is 10 dirhams, which is not much. Yeah, but 10 their dirhams, not. So if it's 10 their dirhams, it's 10 of our pounds.
Oh,
Do you understand?
Yeah.
Don't go by the exchange rate. Look at, do you understand? Because
Yeah.
10 their dirhams is 10 of our pounds. And that's Morocco. It's a poor country.
Yeah.
Small
And there's,
living standards.
they're saying 10. And we're saying £2.50.
Who said £2.50?
Birmingham, remember, £2.50 Birmingham.
So if my
Some places £3.50.
Huh?
Why must it £5?
Yeah.
Did they send it abroad? Is that why
Why
they
don't you
asked?
go and
No, even
Chairman,
there,
what they do.
I actually had this conversation. I said, how did it work? He says, you can get a burger meal for £1.
Oh
I said, it's Eid.
That is so wrong.
It's Eid.
That's so disappointing.
But here again, it's following the rule.
I know, but the
law
thing-
rather than spirit.
No, the thing is that
Yeah,
you've
yeah.
got to understand the intent of the Prophet ﷺ is that he wanted to give joy to people
Yeah.
on that day. So that's what you've got to think.
Yeah, this is our interpretation of the fiqh completely just disjointed from any context or moral or
Yeah.
ethical kind of consideration.
Yeah.
So if my friend who's got like 8 brothers and sisters, the
It's good.
parents
£5 is okay.
for each one of them.
Yeah, £5 is okay.
Yeah.
Can you get a meal
In
for
Rosales we give €6, and that's in Spain. So
That's
I
it.
think here we'd give £7 or something.
There you go. That will be fine.
That seems
That's
decent.
decent.
That's how much we spend on food
Yeah.
anyway.
I
Yes.
think it's a very good way to go to that person, the poor person, and ask them what do you favour as food, or what do you want to eat?
Yeah.
On this occasion.
What do you enjoy as
Yeah.
food, good food, and then just go and buy from them.
It's up to you, but the thing is that sometimes what you've got to understand is, in our detailed books on fiqh, they say that if your relative is someone who can receive zakat, and it's your zakat money, you don't give it.
Because you've got
Okay, 'cause it's about community.
No, it's because the honor of a believer is greater than that of the Kaaba. You never belittle someone.
Oh, I see your point.
Always keep in mind, I want to be treated, I will treat someone like I want to be treated like I would treat others. What's the adage?
Treat others how
Do
you want
unto
to be
me.
treated.
Yeah. And what you've got to understand is if I'm in a situation and someone says, what do you like to eat, rather than give me the money, I would actually take the money and do the shopping and do it myself. The dignity of a believer should be kept intact.
Yeah.
Rather than I would rather give the money
Yeah.
in the morning so they can go and do it.
Yeah.
If you want to give them a meal, that's fine, but give them the money.
Yeah.
It would be like this is a dawat or something like that, but do it such a
Yeah. But does that the obligation begins, to summarize, Zakat al-Fitr. It's an obligation. It's on every Muslim, male, female, slave, young, poor. It begins on the day, beginning of the day. The ideal is that you give it before the Eid prayer. You can give it after, as long as you do give. Yeah. If you forget to give, it's still on your head till you give it. It's given to the poor, and it's not. The school says that your status is not considered in this. Your wealth stand. The whole thing that you need to be above the threshold. No, for this it's not considered. It's your generosity that's considered. So even if you have to borrow to give, they say that's good, because you want to share the joy. So if you have to borrow, it's okay, because you can actually repay that. But you're giving someone that joy that can't be repaid. Yes.
They shouldn't know that it's zakat money, the recipients.
Yeah, I was curious about that.
The thing is that it's the way you give, is the way that you know people and so on and so forth. But the whole thing is that you share the joy for that day.
Like, how do you do it without you saying belittling someone and being like, oh, so.
Before, there used to be, you knew the people, and it went, the families were known, and you did it in a very subtle way. Nowadays, that sometimes poverty is such that they don't mind. I used to work for this charity that worked with the Rohingyas in Karachi, and when I used to visit, you could count their ribs. Such. I've been to Pakistan, but I've never seen such grinding poverty as such.
Balochistan as well.
Yeah,
there's a ridiculous amount of poverty in that place.
But the thing is, it's that people don't mind.
Oh yeah, you can. It's so weird. If you go there, there's a guy dying, and you're going like everyday life. Yeah. Seriously, it's weird. Okay. They become desensitized. Yeah.
Okay, I'm done with zakat. Is there any questions on zakat before we break for Asr?
Just one quick practical one.
Yeah.
If we're not sure about where the money's going in our local mosque, then we just find some other way to distribute it, or should you just?
What do you mean by zakat al-mal or zakat al-fitr?
Fitr.
Zakat al-fitr, it's better. That when you give on the day to the mosque, it's going nowhere.
Because they collect it as you come into it.
Yeah, because on that day, the money's going nowhere.
Yeah.
It's not a Muslim country where that any time that the money gets to the mosque, by the time people come for the next mosque, the recipients will have received it, because that's what happens in Muslim countries. But here it doesn't happen. It sits in people's accounts.
I wouldn't, if it's the mosque, I think we're thinking about.
I wouldn't give any zakat money to any mosque. That's me. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Come on, Edward, quick. No, come on.
About the meaning of zakat, purification and increase, and then what then is the meaning of sadaqah?
Sadaqah is charity.
Well, that's what we use it for, but the kind of the root feeling of the word is what? Is it because tzedakah in Hebrew is righteousness or something?
No, the root is exactly the same in Arabic. It's sidq.
What's that?
Truthfulness.
Nice.
Because what I was I had a thought, but I don't know if I'm still there. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay. But the word zakat,
Yeah.
you know, in this context, the linguistic one, that, you know, numu wa ziyada, that, you know, to grow and increase. And Sidi Hamdoun, he says Hassan, that, you know, it's actually literal growth. Yeah. Okay. Who's the traveller?
Actually, no,
You're not.
today.
Not today. Okay. Asr.